When you have a Trump rally in the Bronx and people are chanting things like build the wall, it feels like a different America could be on the rise. It's now estimated 25,000 people showed up, many of which were turned away for this event in the Bronx. The first time a Republican has campaigned in the Bronx since Ronald Reagan. It was a historic moment. So I guess with New York, you're going to take the good and you take the bad, but you have the people of New York. This proves that the message now, and at least at a minimum, the frustration with the Biden administration is becoming louder and louder.
Telling crooked Joe Biden, the worst president in history, you're fired, like the apprentice. You're fired. Get out. You were terrible. You're destroying our country, Joe. Get out. If you want to help, you must vote. I believe that we can win New York State. We have levels of support that nobody's seen before. I mean, look at this. So register, volunteer, turn out everyone you know. Don't assume it doesn't matter just because you live in a blue city. You live in a blue city, but it's going red very, very quickly.
People that live in South Bronx, some immigrant communities as well, and they were coming there and expressing, even to cameras, talking to the news that were there, telling them how the policies of Joe Biden have harmed them, whether that be cost of living with Bidenflation, whether that be even the immigration crisis as it affects places like New York City, as we've heard Mayor Adams talk about the influx of the migrant crisis and how that's affected the city. It's also affecting the individual citizens right there in South Bronx, right in AOC's home district.
I love it because it defies all logic. It defies all expectation. You would not expect a Republican candidate, period, not just Donald Trump, to show up in a deep blue area of the world, if you will, maybe one of what you consider the bluest. Now, that being said, New York on a individual level or on a state level or on a city level has voted for Republicans in very recent history,
right?
Whether that's in governors, whether that is with your mayors, whatever it is, there are a lot of Republicans that have come out of New York. It just never really makes it to the level of winning the state. But as one of our producers said, Lee Zeldin got really within striking distance.
8% is what the final tally was in the governor's race, and really was someone who it was a member of Congress. So within his district was probably well known and maybe in conservative circles, but not necessarily a household name. He was able to come within striking distance, really, of the governorship of New York at a time where you think the liberal agenda has such a stronghold on New York. And it does. It does to some degree. But there is some glimmer of hope when you start to see people show up and look at common sense policies, and that's what's making them reconsider maybe their affiliations.
I think you do have to remember about New York. It's a little different than any other place in the planet, but specifically in America, which is even unlike in LA or California, New York is filled with a lot of people from a lot of different backgrounds who, and just such a mass amount of people. I used it in our meeting today, analogy of a band who, let's say they come to mid-level city, or come to Minneapolis, something like that. They're just a regular big city. Like a big city, but not like New York. A big city. Chicago even. They may play a venue that holds 2,000 people, 3,000 people. Go to New York City, there's just such a huge amount of people within, like I said, within striking distance, within a few hours.
Right. The concentration of people
they could
in
sell
the
out
city is
Madison
so big.
Square Garden. That has been a trajectory that's happened for years. That's why you see a lot of acts play Madison Square Garden. They're like, look at this arena. It's because there's just so many people. So the idea of Donald Trump drawing 25,000 people is not unlikely.
Right.
Like it may be unlikely in the terms of politics, but it's not unfathomable in terms of population.
Right.
Plus you have a state of, I'll be honest, I love New York. I've lived there. There are real people there. I would say more so than in LA. I love LA. I enjoy it. But the people there are not humans. I'm just kidding. I know a lot of you are watching in LA, but it's a different kind of person.
I think many of our LA listeners would probably agree with you on that, though.
New Yorkers, even the most liberal, are pretty tough, and they're pretty rough, and they live a very different life, just purely based on the climate, the way you have to be it's different. So when you have someone like President Trump who can speak to you on that level, I can see how you can connect. They also are coming face to face. It doesn't matter if you live in the nicest areas of New York or the worst areas of New York, you are coming face to face with the reality of what's happening in your state. And Donald Trump actually spoke about that. And it kind of ad nauseum. You would have thought he was running for governor or running for mayor, because clearly the guy loves where he grew up. He loves New York City. It'd be like us campaigning here. So he talked a lot about saving New York, not unlike a way that Rick Grinnell talks about saving California, some place that they genuinely love. They don't just want it to see it become a cesspool. I've been to many political events of people I do not support. You know why? Because I'm an American. You know what actually campaigning used to mean? It didn't mean you would go see someone you were sure you're going to vote for.
Right.
You actually went to go see, do they say something I like? Back in Lincoln days or whatever it would be, because there was no, 24-hour news or news for that matter, except for, what was coming down the pike.
The Pony Express delivering the paper.
How dare they? Other than that, it wasn't like you could hear from the candidate and really know what they believed or see if you could connect with them. That's what campaigning is supposed to be. So did everyone that showed up to the Bronx, were they 100% behind President Trump? I mean, I would assume 98% of them probably were, but maybe there was a couple percentage of people who went down there and go, you know what? One, I want to see the spectacle. I know plenty of people, some of my more liberal friends, who went to Trump rallies just to see the spectacle.
Right.
Just to feel it, to see what people were talking about. And this was kind of the 2016 Trump era, I'd say. Just because he was a celebrity, it was interesting.
He seems to be much better when he is more specific on his accomplishments when he was president and what he will do, and not just generic.
Yeah,
I mean, even the concept of Make America Great Again is very fairy tale-ish in
but this he
phraseology.
Specifically called out the governor, called out Mayor Adams, said if he became president, he would make sure to work with Governor Hochul and Mayor Eric Adams to fix the city and state, including, he said, he did a whole thing about renovating the subway system, which again, I don't know if that's
the president's
job, but you can tell he cares about his city and seeing his city essentially burn. I mean, there's always a chance. You're only talking about a few percentage points. So Will just pulled it in the election with Governor Hochul against Lee Zeldin.
Just 2 years ago.
Just 2 years ago. This just happened. And it was one of those, who knows how it's going to go. It went 52%, 52.9% Democrats, and 47.1% for Lee Zeldin, the Republican. That is, a pretty close race. Sadly, in the world of politics, 3% is almost like a landslide victory now. Because, look, even in a state like Tennessee, which is maybe the deepest of red states, you're still at 30, 40% that are going to vote for the Democratic candidate.
A lot of times it feels like the Republicans or conservatives are on the defense.
I play Madden.
And that they're having to go to places in a reactionary method to try to make up ground that they're losing to the left. But with this plan, by going to the South Bronx, and as George is suggesting, maybe go to California and put them on the defense, make them have to spend resources to counteract what President Trump is doing, maybe it's a good play.